Hi, I'm Karen Holton, ET and Angelic Experiencer, author, exopolitical ambassador, ascension coach, and content creator.
And I'm Joan Widen, clairvoyant medium, Reiki master teacher, energy healer, body, mind, and soul coach, and podcaster.
And this is the Unseen Nexus podcast.
Have you ever truly wondered what lies beyond the veil?
Or want to learn more about our transdimensional neighbors?
Join us as we unravel the mysteries of existence, from profound spiritual awakenings and ancient wisdom,
to interstellar visitors, cutting-edge discoveries, and the complex conspiracies that bind them all.
We're on a journey to uncover the truth about humanity's extraordinary place in the cosmos.
Get ready to challenge your perceptions and expand your understanding.
Your spiritual mashup has begun.
And we're back for another spiritual mashup. Welcome, everybody. I have a little blurb here. Today, we're peering into the realm of plant communication. Join us as we enter the mysterious and awe-inspiring world of plant consciousness. We eat them, we mow and weed them, we decorate our homes and gardens with them, but have we considered what they might experience in our world? Prepare to have your perceptions challenged. Don't miss this mind-bending episode of the Unseen Nexus. And as usual, all the links are featured below in the description. Please check us out. Subscribe to our channels. Leave us your comments, like our videos, and share share our content with your friends. And I guess that is about it. Joan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Happy to be back in the land of living.
Back in the land of the living. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So today we've got a very, interesting show. We sort of started the conversation a little bit last episode, and we're continuing on with it today, and it's about plant communication. So, Joan, why don't you tell us what you know about plant communication?
Well, what I know about plant communication, so you have the obvious, right? They can feel the energy. They obviously transmute our carbon dioxide into oxygen, but they also, since they have a vast root system, and especially if you have poplar trees like I do here, they're all communicating with one another through their roots.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of amazing. So if they feel like a danger, they can sense it and they can feel it. And they communicate with one another through their root system, which is quite impressive. And what about you, Karen?
I have had personal experiences and I have done research. So just bear with me. I have a couple of points to make. The first thing is my own real life experiences. Ever since I was a little girl, I communicated to plants. I used to talk to them the same way I talked to the bugs and the caterpillars and the birds. And to me, everything was alive. And it was very clear to me, as a young child. And I had a lot of time on my own. And so I would just go and wander around the neighborhood, hanging out more with plants and bugs and animals than I did with other kids. So there's that. Then when I got older, I continued to have a love for plants. I can remember about, 15 or 20 years ago, I had some mint growing in a pot on my balcony. And I said to the mint, well, I didn't talk directly to it, but I was saying out loud, which I often talk out loud to myself. And I was saying, oh, I wish I had some I wish I had some stinging nettles, because stinging nettles are really good to cook and eat in the springtime, and they have a very nice flavor. And then the next week after that, I was out there digging in my mint, and something pricked me or stung me. I went, oh, and I looked in it because that's not usual for mint. And I looked in, and here was this little baby stinging nettle plant growing in the middle of it. I thought that was kind of wild. And then I dug it up and put it in its own pot. And of course, my neighbors thought I was crazy. People tend to not understand why and what I do. And so that's their natural default. And then later, living in the same house, I've told this story quite a few times, but when I was living in the same place, it was actually an apartment building, and my balcony looked out over the yard, and then beyond the yard, there was some railroad tracks with that weren't being used anymore, and there was a lot of overgrowth, and trees and everything had grown up and around the tracks. So anyway, one day I'm sitting out there and I'm looking at the beautiful trees and admiring them and just loving them. And I noticed it within a short period of time that the trees right behind my balcony were starting to grow towards my balcony, but none of the other trees that were opposite anyone else's balcony was doing that. So I said to the trees, kind of half joking, I said, hey, if you guys can reach my so my arms reach from my balcony, I'll decorate you for Christmas. I was so happy. And they started growing like crazy towards my balcony. I couldn't believe it. Only that section. And then one morning I get up and I hear room, room. And somebody had come along with a chainsaw and was cutting down all the trees that were
Oh,
growing towards me. And I felt really bad because I had encouraged them to grow towards me. So, I mean, I've had those experiences that show me without a shadow of a doubt an intelligence there. And then from the research I've done, we can get more into it as we go along, but I'll just give you a brief outlook. So I've done research into plants and found out that, yes, the root systems do interconnect, but they also interconnect with the mushroom or system. And so there's a whole mycelium network that is from fungi and mushrooms that integrates itself with all the other different kinds of plants and trees. It seems to be the primary path for communication. Then I did another study where scientists hooked up little tiny electrodes to the leaves of plants. And then they did certain things, like, for instance, they cut some of the plants down and started cooking them. And they got an immediate reaction that these little sensors picked up of the plants freaking out that they were being hurt and being cooked. And then another example is, in another experiment they did with scientists, they hooked up little interface electrical components to the plants that was hooked up to synthesizer music. And so the humans started playing music to the plants, but then the plants created their very own music for the humans. We can get more into those different examples. But I have to tell you, I always, there's a lot of brainwashing out there that says you have to be a vegetarian or a vegan in order to be spiritual. And I know that's not true from my own experience. And I've eaten, I've tried being vegan and all that. It just doesn't agree with me. But when I went back to eating animals again, I felt kind of bad. But then I realized that it's all life, it's all alive, it all has feelings, it all has consciousness. And unfortunately, on this planet, we kill what we need to eat. I know I've kind of
right.
gone on and on. Rodney says, we have to eat something. Exactly. Hi, Rodney. Nice to
Exactly.
have you with us today.
Hi, Rodney. So with that, also, Karen, I also know that for me, myself, I also know from my own experience that I cannot go vegan, even vegetarian. It's my body requires the meat, and
Mm-hmm.
again, as long as you eat what you know, eat what you kill, I guess, and you honor it, that is where it goes. And for us in my family, we buy a whole cow, and
Mm-hmm.
that feeds our whole family for a year. And that includes
Mm-hmm.
having visitors and stuff like that. So, again, it's one of those things, and each one of us are different. It doesn't mean because you're not a vegetarian, you can't be spiritual. And I've always been a really huge meat eater. And as for plants, I'm going to tell you for me, specifically, that some plants do not agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of plants that I cannot actually eat because it physically makes me sick, or it creates some sort of um, inflammation in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plants, and if you watch the animals that eat them, they don't eat all of them either, because some plants literally are out to try and kill you because they don't want to be eaten. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and for me, there's nothing like you can't even honor it in that sense, because it still will
Mm-hmm.
put inflammation within your body,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
right?
makes perfect sense because they can't lift up their skirts and run away. And so
Correct.
what they can do is cause toxicity for humans. And so then it becomes part of the human's wisdom and ways of knowing that certain plants can make them sick and certain plants are okay. Plus, up until the last 100 years or so, we weren't eating everything in every season. We would eat, in the springtime, maybe some baby greens along with meat. In the wintertime, of course, it was meat or, canned foods. And, then in the summer, people would be eating, more vegetables and stuff. And then in the fall, the fruit to fatten up for winter, and then back into basically carnivore because when it's very cold, it's easy to keep meat. But I myself have had, I really tried. I really tried to be a vegan. I tried to be a raw vegan. I fell um, into the mythology that if you eat lots of vegetables, you'll completely heal yourself. Your arthritis will go away. Everything will be healed. Plants are the healers. And I just found that not to be true. And when I've communicated with what I'll call the plant kingdom or the plant realm, I was told that they had three primary reasons for being alive. One is to reproduce, two is to add to the balance and the harmony of the planet, and number three is to serve as food for those that are I guess, walking a spiritual path. Then later, when I started eating meat, I got exactly the same message. And it almost knocked me off my chair. I was very surprised. But beyond that, we're talking about plant communication. They do communicate with each other, they do take care of each other. They've also found that out in the forests, there are trees that will allow themselves to be malnourished in order for more nutrient to go to other plants and trees so they have a chance to grow. Like it's a whole amazing phenomenon that we don't really look into. We're all interested in ghosts and ET and paranormal stuff. Um, but very few people are interested in plants. And interestingly enough, a lot of the vegans are not that interested in plants. For the way things are grown today commercially, in order for them to grow all the food that the vegans and vegetarians eat, it's like a horrible killing field for small animals and snakes and bugs and all kinds of creatures, even some mammals that we wouldn't expect. Whatever's out there living in the habitat of where, you know, these crops are, they're all killed. So like Rodney said from the live chat, we have to eat something, absolutely. But I think it's important for us to recognize the consciousness that is in all living things, even some things we don't consider to be living, like crystals. But yeah, so Joan, have
But
you have
but
you seen any of those studies that they've done where they hook little electrodes up to
oh
the plant
yes.
leaves? And yeah, do you want to tell us more detail about that?
So with those vibrations, they'll speak something to the plant. So something like that, hatred or even nefarious towards the plant. And the vibration of the plant changes. And it's almost, they say that there's even the vibration is a fear vibration. And then if you say you're very pretty and you're very like, you're so beautiful and I love you and all these lovely things that you say to the plant, it also reacts to that. And it's a different vibration. It's not as, I believe, as eradicated, like the lines in it. And so there's all these things. And even with flowers, you can actually go, when you see a bud and you see it, you know, starting to open, you can like open, open, open. You can like cheer it on and it will actually open in front of you. So there's so many different things, and you can do that to us humans too. So if you're looking at your kids and you can like cheer them on to grow, and they just will. And so many plants and even the trees, if there's a branch that's close to you, you can ask it to come touch you, and they do. But the vibration of these plants are huge, right? No one wants their beautiful flowers to be cut off of them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, because that's their appreciation of what their nourishment is. And so then they bloom so that they can be
Mm-hmm.
pretty. But does that mean they want us to be cutting them and doing whatever to them? Not necessarily. And so it's interesting take how, you know, some people don't think of plants as having any sort of feelings or a life to them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
plants will even invite bees to come to them so that
Mm-hmm.
they can reproduce, right? And sometimes even there's fake bees, which is interesting. There's wasps that look like bees. And so, and then they'll kill the bees, right? But some plants will actually kind of shoo those wasps away just so that the bees can live and they can again reproduce, because that is the whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm looking outside, there are some trees that, you know, they're still good, but you can see it starts to diminish because, like you said, Karen, earlier, it goes weaker. And part of that ecosystem is so that the woodpeckers and other animals can eat off of it, because it needs to be somewhat alive for the bugs to
Mm-hmm.
go in it so that the woodpeckers can peck it in order to get the grub out. So it's quite the ecosystem, and it breaks and they will break where the woodpecker had pecked. It's quite it's quite intricate, and
Mm-hmm.
the, you know, the geometrics, like Rodney said, is they are quite amazing, because every plant has geometric patterns, right? Sacred patterns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And every plant absorbs different aspects of the light spectrum from the sun, and it takes that biophotonic energy and uses it to grow. And, they even used to have hospitals. This is a little off topic, but kind of not. They used to have hospitals where they would put all the patients outside in the sun, and they healed so super, super fast. But getting back to plants, I've also heard lots of people say that when they're planting their own garden, they'll take the seed, put it in their mouth, and get it moist and their saliva on it, and then they plant it, and then the plant knows what to give the people as far as nutrients go. And I can remember back when
Ooh.
I was growing, yeah, I remember back when I was growing tomatoes, I'd bring a tomato in from outside, and it wasn't squishy, but it had some give to the skin. And then I
Yep.
would run it under cold water to clean the dust or whatever off of it. And the tomato would become very rigid and firm. Like you could feel its shape and its substance changing in your hand to show that this is a live thing. And last year I had a guest on the Quantum Guide show named Becca Dickens, and she's a restorative farmer. And what they do differently in restorative farming is they don't plow the field. When you plow the field, you're cutting all the connections that they use to communicate with each other. And so for instance, if there is some carrots in one part of the garden and there's maybe the peripheral or certain area within the garden, the carrots aren't doing so good, the other plants will actually sense it and send nutrients. And they also will do that with things to keep pests away, and they cooperate with each other. Well, in commercial gardening, they don't do any of that.
No.
And so on her farm, they don't do any tilling or plowing at all. They basically just throw pieces of whatever they want to grow, and then they cover it with mulch and leaves and things, and they end up with these huge harvests of super healthy, super nutrient dense vegetables. So I think the thing is what you're getting at and what I'm getting at is we live in this giant ecosystem, and we're codependent on each other. Everything is
Mhm.
dependent on everything else. And the ways of dealing with plants, say over 100 years ago and older, is completely different than today. Today it's just kill them with weed killer, herbicide,
Mm.
pesticides, kill all the bugs, and do all the kind of harvesting that's not just hard on them, but hard on all the other parts of the
Everyone.
ecosystem. Yeah. So I think we need to look at the as plants as being part of a living system, I guess is how I would say it.
Yeah, because if you think about greenhouses and stuff, right? So the plants aren't really getting, um, if we want to look at it just like farming, except
Mm-hmm.
for the cows get to graze and they're outside and doing all these things. But if you really get down to the nitty gritty of some of the fruits and vegetables and plants that we eat, they're in a greenhouse and they don't get your outside time. They don't actually get to feel the actual earth because sometimes it's done under UV light. And
Mm-hmm.
then, as for pollinating and all that, you have workers with a brush and that they're pollinating all these plants themselves. So they don't even, again, it's not done with bees, it's artificial, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we tend to gloss over that and not think about that, right? And to go back to your sentiment about hospitals and having patients go out, hospitals also now have like solariums, right? And they're filled with plants. And in my front room here, I have a room that's dedicated to plants and they're in there. And so when I want to chill, and I have a lot of plants because I feel like we are living beings and
Mm-hmm.
you should invite living things within your house. And so typically, and if you want, like in my pranic healing modality and in my teachings, and that is dead things are not welcome. So even though they might be cool and they're pretty, again, if you have a dead thing within your house and you have living plants around it, it's almost giving them a anxiety, if you will, because it's showing them that you are paying homage to these dead plants. And
Mhm.
so I know it sounds really strange, but if you have a dead plant and it's in within amongst all your other plants, the other plants will start to suffer because they're going, oh my goodness, what's wrong with this plant? They're allowing it to die, all these different things, right? Because they do communicate. They want to, you know, they want to live amongst us.
Mhm.
And if you have to eat them, well then I would say the reason why gardens flourish when you don't do too much to them is because you're giving them an offering, right? You're saying thank you very much, and if you till it and you not necessarily till, but if you pick some of the weeds so it can grow a little bit more, or you're even pruning it a little bit, it knows that when you're doing it, it's not out of malice, it's more out of love for the plant so it can grow abundantly. And therefore it's almost like our giveaway when we do all these things with the plants because we're doing it in our garden full of love versus in a huge greenery where people are going there working and not really giving a shit, right?
Mhm.
And cutting it, and they could have a crappy day, they could whatever, don't even believe in it. And that's the energy that can be put in the plant, and therefore the plant doesn't necessarily grow or
Mhm.
be very nourishing to us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and can you imagine, like, if just because we don't think that plants are conscious doesn't mean that they're not conscious. So I know of different people who have done psychedelics, and when they went outside and they walked around in their yard, they were, for the first time, aware that they were seen and understood by the trees and the bushes and things and the plants. I think the most interesting thing that I didn't realize before was when I saw a documentary about how they hooked up plants to synthesizers and they were able to communicate with the plants through the synthesized music. And the plants were able to literally create their own music to communicate back. And that really was an eye opener for me. Just like there's a documentary, probably several out there now, where they show you elephants doing watercolor painting, and
right,
some elephants are better at it than others. When I saw that, I went, "Oh my God, we are looking at the whole world wrong." We are surrounded by consciousness, and where there's consciousness, there's emotion, there's feelings, there's ways of knowing. And up until again, a little over 100 years ago, plants were used all over the world as medicines. They know
yes,
what we need, and often what we need grows right in our own back alleys and backyards. That is, assuming we're not using, herbicides and pesticides and Roundup and stuff. But can you imagine how it would be to be a living thing that's rooted and planted and can't get up and run away, and it has to take whatever we dish out to it. So even as you were talking about the greenhouses, can you imagine if there's all these screwed up people working in the I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying if there was screwed up
right,
people working in the greenhouses and stuff, the plants would probably shudder with the outpouring of all that bad energy and bad feelings and bad thoughts. So I know we're really out on a limb with this discussion, but it's only weird until we understand it's a real thing. And then when we understand it's a real thing, wow, it's a shakeup to what we believe, what we're conscious of, what we're aware of. But I think it has to happen. I think there has to be a certain shakeup for us to wake up and realize that the world is so much more magical than we ever expected. Hi, Leah. Nice to see you. Leah
Hi,
says,
Leah.
recently I had my flower beds destroyed by my landlord. It was too horrific, broke my heart. They killed my friends and burnt my church down. Too traumatic. All the centuries and neighbors. Oh, sorry. All the creatures and neighbors are shocked too. And she also says, reminds me of what the Dracs did in the past. And I'm guessing you're referring to the Draconians. And yes, absolutely. Leah, you probably weren't here when I told my story, but maybe you've heard me tell it before since you've seen so many of my podcasts about when I made friends with the trees out back and they grew towards me. And then one day I heard the chainsaws and I went running to see, and they cut down my friends. I literally bawled my eyes out that they cut down my friends. And I felt like it was my fault because I encouraged them to grow out towards me. And maybe if I just kept their secret, maybe they'd still be around. I don't know. So.
Right. Yeah. The thing is it's unfortunate. People don't see it. People see that when trees grow and they're encroaching on a building, well, then it's going to wreck the building. Well, I can tell you, I have quite a few that are close to the building on one side, and we had thought about, oh yeah, we should probably, and it's like, no, those ones are okay. And again, you just have to talk to them a little bit, and then they start growing away from the house. It's quite organic kind of thing where they just do when you ask them, right? Again, it's amazing what plants can do. Plants and how they touch you, how even when you're like on the ground laying on the grass, because that's one of my favorite things to do, lay on the grass and stargaze. It's yes, it's grounding, but the grass actually feels like it kind of hugs you when you do it,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I like to lay on the grass too, but unfortunately, we have so many ants in our backyard. Literally, you can stand out on the grass and you can feel the earth moving below your feet because there's so many
Wow.
ants under there that have built their colonies. And if I lay down, it doesn't take long till I'm covered in them, and then I get up and do my little dance. But I mean, if plants are conscious, probably bugs are too. Probably they might have what you'd call group consciousness, but once you start opening your eyes to how much life there is all around us, well, I'll tell you one thing, I never feel lonely. The air is full of microorganisms and plant particles and pollens and little dustings of different kinds of fungi, and it's all alive and it's all around us. Have you ever
Everything is.
looked? Yeah, when you have a day when the sun is shining directly in a window and it lights up the room and you go, oh my God, no wonder I keep getting all this dust all over everything. It's everywhere. The water is full of everything. And, that's another thing I wanted to mention is Dr. Emoto did experiments where he put
Yes.
words on glasses of water, then froze the water and looked at the structure of the crystals that formed. There's also trying to remember her name. Oh gosh, I've had her on my show before too, where she does experiments where she puts things like a petri dish of water and puts it on an image and then freezes it, and the water copies the image. And there's so much proof that even water is alive. What if everything around us, except perhaps what's man-made, but even in some ways that could be alive too. But if it was
Yep.
all alive, how would we change the way we treat each other and how we step out into the world? I'm just going to quickly catch up on the on the live chat here. Leah says people never consider the fruit it produces. It seems every storm, every breeze, every season, it deserves some respect. And Rodney says here about how sunflowers didn't follow the sun this year as they always have. I'm glad you mentioned that, Rodney, because I have a whole bunch of sunflowers in the backyard, and not once did they track the sun. Not once. And I
Wow.
have never seen this before. And then that gets me going down the rabbit holes of sun simulation and cloud seeding and all that other stuff. But my sunflowers did not track the sun at all this year. They were just all over the place. And so I'm glad you mentioned it, because sometimes I wonder if I'm imagining it. Leah says, consider the time it takes to grow. It takes effort. Absolutely does. And Leah also says, yay, nature and water is source. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think the many of the Aboriginal groups look at the sun as being alive, the air or the wind as being alive,
Mhm.
the water is alive, and the earth is alive. And we can
Everything is. Yep.
everything is, but we can tap into those four sources of what I would consider source energy, and our whole world can change. And I hope our whole world does change, because it's been a bit crazy down here lately.
It kind of has. It's interesting time to be alive. That's for sure. And
Mhm.
awakening the consciousness is a great thing as well, because people need to see and hear all these different things about plants and animals and even ants and like bugs. Like when I've come across a bug in my house, and I don't love spiders, they kind of scare me. So I
Mhm.
say to them, listen, you can, I will respect you as long as you respect me. So if you stay in your space and you allow me to be in my space, we can totally coexist. And I'm like, if you want me to put you outside, let me know and I'll put you outside. But literally, that we can coexist and we're totally fine with that.
Mhm. Mhm. I
Because we do.
also yeah, I also think inside our homes can be a bit of an ecosystem. So I live in central Alberta, and for some reason I get very few spiders here. And I don't really mind spiders. I just tell them, like what you tell them, to stay in their own area, and we'll get along fine. But they capture all the mosquitoes, and they capture all kinds of other pests that are more annoying. And so that's why I don't mind them either. But I also try not to kill bugs. I have to confess, when I was younger, I used to kill spiders before I realized what I was doing. Um, and I've probably killed a few silverfish because they give me the creeps. I have a very hard
What
time with them.
silverfish?
Oh, they're tiny. They look like little silver fish, but except they're not in water, but they need water to procreate. And you find them in dark cupboards and stuff, and they
Oh,
move so fast that
okay.
they always kind of startle me. But I try not to kill anything. Little wood bugs and ladybugs and all that. I just try to put them outside. And the ants, that is why I have an ant population, because I have not been more aggressive at getting rid of them. But I'm just renting this little space with a house on it. It's not mine, and certainly isn't mine from a human perspective. It belongs to all of us. The trees and the flowers, and I would have a crazy overgrown backyard if I owned the property, but I don't, so I have to kind of keep it tamed a bit. I just want to check in with Rodney. Says heck has frozen over, peace in the Middle East. Well, let's just see if that's true. What we're told on TV, whether it's
It's totally
the
different.
socials or the mainstream, may not resemble reality at all. Of course, I hope for peace in every which way, peace with each other. If we can't have peace with each other, how are we going to have peaceful relations with extraterrestrials, interdimensionals?
With anyone,
I know
really.
Yeah, with anyone really. I mean, Joan, what about in your world? Because I know you deal with I was going to say the undead, but no, they're actually dead. They're not physical anymore, but they're in spirit form and all different
Right.
kinds of beings. Yeah, how do you see us living more harmoniously with the well, I guess I'll call the unseen, but you can see them, so I don't know what to call them.
Really, what they're trying to do is wake us up to remember who we are, right? They're going, okay, it's time to wake up. It's time to remember what the soul is here to do. And it is really about ascending, and it's about opening not necessarily just our third eye, but our pineal gland, which is like really deep within the soul, so that we can understand and live harmonious with each other. Because when we can transcend in that, and again, it emanates the unconditional love, we can see how everything is and how everything interacts with each other, and how everything is actually intricately connected with one another, that it will
Mhm.
change our perspective on everything. And at the beginning, when I said, oh, it's nice to be back to the land of the living, because I was just on tour for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks actually, and doing my psychic stuff and mediumship work. And there's a lot of, people wanting to connect and understanding what they can do better and grow for themselves, right? And
Mhm.
we are kind of like plants, where we have to, we got to talk to ourselves. And it's not necessarily saying that our way is the best way and the only way. It's about gathering, meeting, and understanding one another,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Mhm. So Leah has asked you, Joan, uh, uh, she has a question regarding her soul's work within nature.
Okay.
And then she says, I have a contract to honor in this life that involves nature and elementals. And I'm not really sure what she wants to know, but it sounds like she wants to know if you're picking up anything about her soul contract while she's here on Earth.
Okay. So when I read all of that and what I heard there, you're kind of asking how you would do that. And for me, so for the elementals, so you would give like give a honoring, like an offering, right? So elementals, especially fairies, love sugar. They don't necessarily just want plain crystallized sugar, so they like candy. And so the best candy for them would be like nerds, right? And you could go to the Dollarama and or the dollar store, and you can get a big pack, and you just sprinkle it around a little bit. And then to honor them, you would also honor them with tobacco or corn paho. Not quite sure what corn paho is. You'd have to look it up, but I believe it's type of a grain, right? But again, they just want you to give them, like, they love the sweet things. Yes. Right? So, and then they'll watch over you and they'll be there. And again, it's really, and if you give the sweets, and if you see um a mushroom village, you can
Mhm.
put sprinkle a little bit. Like, you don't have to do a lot, because you have to remember these elementals are like little tiny things. So like one of those big nerds would be like a big boulder for them. So and they just love it, and they protect, and they show everything. You can help them. And yeah, or even sometimes they like having like doors on a tree, like little things to make them feel homey, really.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
What
Yeah,
do you
I
think, Sharon?
agree. I used to actually contact the fairies, and the way I would do it is I would take either something shiny or something sweet, but they like shiny things too that reflect light. And you can put
Yes.
them in a jar and put a rock on top. and you tell them that, they want the treasure, but they can't get it because of the rock on top. But if they grant you a wish, you will remove the rock from them. And I've done experiments with this. And then I go out and I remove the rock and I say, okay, here, I'm keeping my word. Here's your treasure. But are you going to keep your word? Are you going to help me out with this? And it could be anything. The closer to nature, the better, I think, in this
Right?
case.
Yes. And
Yeah,
they love
yeah,
glitter. They
yeah.
just love glitter.
They really do. And the other thing too is respecting the fairy rings, like you were talking about mushrooms. Fairy
Yes.
rings are identifiable because it's a ring of mushrooms, could be 4 feet in diameter. And yeah, I
Or
try not to
even
step in them.
clover leaf, right?
Yeah.
The fairy rings, the clovers grow within that. And if you ask them, right, like if you sprinkle stuff around there, then
Mhm.
they will move them if you don't want them in a certain spot as well. You're
And
welcome, Leah.
yeah, and they also work very closely with the birds and the plants, the elementals. And so sometimes if you leave something out for the birds, they also show their appreciation. And of course, the plants, as we were saying earlier, Leah says, thank you both. Have a great evening. Well, thank you, Leah, for
Thank you.
joining us. That was quite lovely. And I missed a comment up here from Rodney Letman says, the Hopi prophecy seems to be around the corner, fifth world. So I think what you're talking about there, Rodney, for those in the audience who are not familiar, is there is a Hopi prophecy that there'll be a splitting off of 2 worlds. And those that want to stick with the old world, they
We'll
get the
stay.
old world, but it doesn't last. But those that are reaching for a higher vibration, a higher way of being, a more noble way of being human, that we're also going to branch off into a much more successful and long-lasting reality. So if that's what you're referring to, Rodney, the fifth world, absolutely, that's going to be very exciting. And I think that by exploring topics like we are today, we're actually raising our frequency, raising our awareness, raising the vibration of who we are, what we are, and how we move around in this world. I don't know. Joan, what's your thoughts?
Absolutely. I believe the same thing because the thing is, everyone wants to know when the fifth dimension is coming, when all this stuff. But consider that people will just move to the fifth dimension and others, it's kind of in the same because people will move to the fifth dimension and the other is just going to stay where we are now and they won't even really notice the difference. We will, like, people will notice it because you'll see that things are going to start to fall off. There's going to be the low vibrating energy that they bring, but it's not necessarily okay, now that's done, let's go here. In my
Mm-hmm,
opinion, that's what it feels like. Right now,
mm-hmm.
what's the other thing that people are talking about, and it doesn't resonate with me, so I don't. It doesn't. It's like the end of the world or something. What is that? Do you know what I'm talking
Well,
about, Karen?
I think you might be talking about the people who are looking for a catastrophe to come to cleanse the earth. And I know the Bible talks about the Antichrist, and then it
Yeah,
talks about the second coming of Christ, and then there's 1,000 years of peace. That actually is not that far off from the Hopi prophecy and
yeah.
other prophecies. So I'm not sure if that's what you are talking about. The other thing too
No,
is I think that the veil is thinning, and so we're starting to
yes,
become more aware of transdimensional, interdimensional beings, things, realities we never even dreamed possible a few years ago. You could read about it in science fiction, and that was about it. If you really believed in that stuff, you were considered a nutter. and you were discredited, accused of being evil, worshiping the devil, or being a mental patient. Thank you, but no thank you. Surprise, surprise, the greater reality is the greater reality.
And so for that, what you were talking about is the is when we raise our consciousness, right? And when we awaken, that is where that the actual peace can come about. And if we think about Jesus's teaching, just on his teaching, right? The God's within us, he doesn't, he says, don't worship me, you are like me. So if we were to look at that directly, he's saying that he that we are also God-like, right? Because we are part of God. Meaning also because they breathe life into us. Right? And so we are one with God in that sense. So in my opinion, I feel like the second coming of Christ is not necessarily one specific person, it's all of us becoming Christ, if that
Yep.
makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me. I just want to also clarify something. I didn't realize that I didn't change my the little bar that has at Karen Holton TV, Aliens and Angels podcast host. I'm sorry. I didn't change it. I should have changed
Oh,
it to
good.
Unseen Nexus co-host. And for those of you who don't know, Joan is actually co-hosting with me. And so it'll be us two doing every show. And the reason we're doing this is so that we have the chance to hang out and shoot the shit
Yes.
and talk about what we believe. Now, getting back to
Plants.
The idea of the return of Christ, I actually agree with you, Joan. In my understanding, I've been to many churches, mostly Christian. I have read the Bible 3.5 times, which that means is I made it all the way through 3 times, and then I was a halfway through when I quit religion, and so that's why I have 3.5 years. 3.5 times reading the Bible cover to cover. And my understanding is it's Christ consciousness. So,
Yes.
when Christ says that his return will be like the way he left, where he disappears into the clouds, it's sort of, I believe we have to become the eyes and the minds of Christ. We have to understand what that means, understand the greater teachings. And I think that applies to the Gnostics as well as,
It's
the
everything.
canonical books of the Bible. But the more you look into it, it seems like it's Christ consciousness. And
Yes.
you see a lot of people who claim to be all religious and Christ worshiping Jesus. They get high on Jesus, but their lives are in shambles and they're not even nice people. And I'm going, I don't think that's it. The same as I don't think that's it when people go, well, all you have to do is believe in Jesus and then you're saved. And you can do whatever you want because Jesus is still going to save you. I don't know. Those don't ring 100% true for me. I'm not trying to put down anybody who believes in those things. I'm just saying I would agree with you, Joan. It's Christ
Yeah.
consciousness. It's about becoming a better kind of human.
Yes.
And Christ taught us how to do that. And
Correct.
we're trying.
As for
Anyway, did I miss
Jesus,
anything?
as for Jesus saving you, I don't think he's physically going to come and save you. What that means would be, in my opinion, is that when you start understanding, not necessarily following Jesus, but understanding his teachings to be not to be him, but to raise your elevation in that Christ consciousness is where he will, quote unquote, save you,
Mm-hmm.
if you
And
will. Does that make
mm-hmm.
sense?
To me, it does. And also, the whole core thing is love. And what does
Yep.
love mean? Most people don't even know what love means. And we get into that in many other podcasts. But we're coming close to the end of the show,
Yes.
and I wondered if there's any comments from the live chat. People, do you have any comments about plant communication? Joan, do you have anything else you want to say about plant
Hmm.
communication that we didn't quite cover or that you didn't get a chance to say?
Actually, okay. So with plants, I'm going to say if you're going to eat them and you're going to um, be with them, I would say honor it. Honor it. Say thank you for your gift of um, nourishment. Thank you for allowing, thank you for your service, right? If you will, of giving me this nourishment and bless them. And then
Mm-hmm.
that will be like their giveaway to you, right? And if you do that, you will see the plants will start, your body can like I want to say transmute, but it's not. But your body can absorb all the nutrients better than what it
Mm-hmm.
would before, right? So a lot of things that we eat have plants in it, right? Like wheat, and there's quinoa, there's rice, all of those things. But when we can honor it and say thank you for it instead of going, "Oh my goodness, they made you and it's not so good and it's yucky." If we can change that narrative, no matter what it is, whether it's pizza, hamburger, or whatever, if we change that narrative and give it love and honor this nourishment, no matter what form it is, as it's going into our body, it will be more nourishing than us
Mm-hmm.
making it uglies.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that too. And sometimes, it's good to put the screens down and the phone down and to go outside and do what Joan does, get your feet in the grass. But it's also very awe-inspiring, the beauty that's all around us and the harmony that's all around us. We don't want to ever forget about that. So I go out and I see my sunflowers and my other plants, and I have some medicinal plants growing in containers and stuff. And I see the butterflies and the bees, and I see the trees, and I see the birds. And it's just so beautiful. It's so incredibly beautiful. And I thank it all for being there for me so that I could observe it, see it, and enjoy it in the now. How wonderful a world we live in. And I think a lot of people are being plagued with confusion and um, dysregulated emotions and depression and all kinds of things. And the fix is really only a few steps away outside your door, or if you can't get out, have plants, just like Joan was saying.
Yes.
She has her solarium. I do too. I've got all in the sunniest room of the house. I have all kinds of plants, even my outdoor container plants. I drag them in when it gets cold and continue to grow them indoors, like my rosemary and my
Yeah.
catnip. Oh, my cats love that. And create this wonderful environment. If you can sit in a room where the sun comes in for part of the day with your plants, you're going to feel a huge, huge improvement. So it's kind of like the whole system is built to
Yes.
extend love and comfort and healing. And all we have to do is step into that reality. Joan, we're quickly running out of time, but I want to give you some space, talk about what you're up to, where
Okay.
people can find you, and all that other good stuff.
All right. Well, you can find me on YouTube at Joan Widen Clairvoyant Medium. I have my podcast. Again, I have been traveling, so that has been put on the back burner. But it's Journey with Joan. There's a new one, and it's my newer picture that you see on Clairvoyant Medium. Um, and then this, the Unseen Nexus. Of course, I have other things that I'm working with on the background as well. But Karen, take it away. Tell us all about all your good, yummy stuff that you do, because I know you are one busy woman.
Yes, thank you, Joan. Well, I have on Wednesdays Quantum Guide show where I interview people from all over the world that are adding something positive and significant to this world. It could be healing, it could be rescuing, it could be just insights into reality, all kinds of cool things. And on Sunday, I have the Aliens and Angels podcast that I have the wrong nameplate here. Says, sorry about that. I don't know. I just thought I had my act together, but maybe I don't. Anyway, so Aliens and Angels is really interesting because it's all real people talking about real contact. Joan's been on the show before, and it's about ET contact, but not just that. Everything that's unexplainable really could be classified as either aliens or angels or who knows what. But it's what's really exciting about it is instead of just having researchers, I have people who've had real experiences. And I think the more we normalize this stuff, the more people are going to come out and talk about it. And I think we're our own disclosure. If you haven't done so, you can order my book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, written by myself, Karen Holton, and you can find that on Amazon worldwide. I have a website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. It's a different kind of health coach. I look after all aspects of the human being that's weird and wacky and out there, where they can't necessarily get the support and love and help that they need from mainstream. Joan, you've got a website too, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do. It's my name, www.joanwiden.com.
Wonderful. So I hope you'll all come and check out our website, see what our offerings are, and enjoy taking a walk on the wild side. And that's about it for today. I want to thank everybody who made the effort to join us in the live chat. It really enhances the show. It makes my experience so much more enjoyable. There's so much more going on. I want to thank you, Joan, for always showing up for the show. And yes, as I mentioned, Joan actually isn't my guest. She's my co-host. Not saying that the way it sounds. I mean it in the nicest and loving ways. Yeah. So do check us out. And tomorrow is actually a premiere for the Quantum Guide show, an interview, not really an interview, but a nice meeting I had with Stephen Stathis from BG Cast, part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network panel. And we've got that coming on. We're going to talk about how to tone down the toxic spiritualities that are being offered and how to expand our own personal spirituality. So that should be very interesting. So without further ado, I guess that's it for now. And Joan, do you have anything else before we go?
That's it. We will catch you next time. Have a great afternoon. And I hope to see you guys on each one of our podcasts. Thank you again for all your support and always with much love and gratitude.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all
Bye.
very, very much. Bye-bye.